Welcome to the Maria Liberati Show, where food meets art, travel, and life. So what does food mean to you? Well, this week's special guest is Dr. Mike Fenster. He is a cardiologist, he's an author, and he is a culinary medicine professor, which is really interesting. So if you want to know how to combine, your eating with eating healthier, please stay tuned for this really interesting interview. Dr. Mike is going to give us some tips on what you should do to eat healthier, and it's things that you'll definitely like to hear. So stay with me. My special guest today is Dr. Mike Fenster. Did I say your last name correct?
You did. German for window.
Oh, wow. How about that? And Dr. Mike, thank you so much for being here today and for what you're going to share with us today. So Dr. Mike is a cardiologist. He's a professor of culinary medicine and an author also. And I know what culinary medicine is, but my listening audience may not know what that is. And by the way, he's a professor of culinary medicine at the University of Montana, correct?
Yep, Big Sky.
Yes. A beautiful place to be. But anyway, so can you tell my listening audience what is culinary medicine?
Sure. So really, culinary medicine is focused on the individual's relationship to food through their food experiences. So every time we sit down and we eat, we have really a unique experience, right? The ancient Greek philosopher Heraclitus said, you never enter the same river twice because you're not the same person and it's not the same river. So even if you're serving that same old dish, again and again every day of the week, right? It's different because you're with different people, you're in a different mood. All of that impacts our health, believe it or not, to varying degrees and through varying mechanisms. So really at the core of what we do about culinary medicine, it's about empowering an individual to positively reconnect, reestablish, and reforge their relationship to their food. Because when we think about our relationship with food, it really forms a cornerstone from the moment we're just little wee ones with our mom and connecting with our mom either through breast or bottle. We start forming relationships over food. And it turns out when we look at data from like Harvard, through one of their studies, what we find is that the most important thing in terms of how healthy we are, how long we live, how well we live, how happy we are with our lives, it's the quality, not the quantity. So it's not about Facebook likes or Instagram likes, whatever, but the quality of the relationships in our lives. And folks can really watch that. I know that there's a new documentary on Netflix that covers some of the Blue Zone stuff. I think it's called Live to Be 100 or something like that. Really, their research, that's Dan Buettner's research from National Geographic Society, he's found much the same. There's not a magic food. There's not a magic meditation, but it's this concept of strong relationships and supportive relationships that encourage people not only to live a long time, but to be functional, which, as a physician is very important. We talk about quality of the food, and that can be reflected in the quality of our lives.
Right. Oh, that's wonderful. Yes, I've heard so much in the past few months about how relationships are so important. The quality of your life and the length of your longevity also. But I just get the feeling that most people don't have the concept that they don't have how should I put this, a relationship with food. They just think it's something to satisfy hunger. They don't get it that it is a medicine, and anything you put in your body affects your body in many different ways. Do you find that people don't really get it?
Well, we've really gone away from that over the decades. I mean, if we look, right, most of human history is built around our relationships over food because it's so wound into our DNA. Recently, they found in a cave in South Africa ancestors of Homo sapiens. So our ancestors, going back more than 150,000 years we've been around as Homo sapiens,
Right.
but our ancestors were burying the dead in these caves in South Africa and giving offerings of food.
Oh,
So food had a connotation and import
mhm.
that was ceremonial, probably religious to as much as the degrees we can
Right.
sort that out. So
Uh-huh.
that's really wound into our DNA. You look at how it's affected the history of humankind. The
Right.
story of food is the story of us as human beings.
Right.
In a sort of microscopic version, our individual story,
Uh-huh.
food story, is really the story of us. What do you like? What don't you like? Why do you like this? What do you remember? I mean, ask anybody some of their top 5 or 10 memories, and there's food packed in there somewhere, some food
Definitely.
related to some event, this or that. And it's still so powerful. For relationship therapists, a romantic dinner is still a very potent therapy. Why? Because intuitively we bond, we communicate. There's something about food. I like to say that food is social currency.
Right.
So
Yes.
it's not just what we eat in
Right.
terms of the nutrients. That's important,
Uh-huh.
but it's also how we eat and how we eat with each other, and
Uh-huh.
all these things. It turns out, to get back to your point about these, how it connects to relationships, turn out to have big impacts on our overall health and wellness.
Uh-huh. Oh, wow. So I guess I wanted to see if you could share some tips with my audience, on culinary medicine or just some healthy eating tips, whether it be that as, I know you've already said, obviously like sharing food, eating with others is, I think, an important point that you're making. It's really important to do that, but any other tips that you can give us?
Well, sure. It obviously does start with what we decide to put on the plate.
Right.
And unfortunately, if you look at our gift from America to the rest of the world,
Mm.
it's what we call in culinary medicine the standard American diet, or as it's known, just SAD.
Yes,
It's perhaps one
it
of the
is
most
sad.
appropriate
Yeah.
acronyms ever, and it's really because it's the average American consumes about 70% ultra processed food.
Oh my
And
God.
by that, I mean something very specific.
Yeah.
So I want to talk to your audience, because you hear this term kind of bandied about where people say, well, it's processed food, it's ultra processed food, it's this, that. We actually use a very specific definition that was developed by Professor Monteiro, Carlos Monteiro from the University of Sao Paulo in Brazil, only a little over a decade ago. It was
Uh-huh.
first published around 2009.
Uh-huh.
It's been adopted by the United Nations, many countries around the world.
Uh-huh.
The French, which are known for their how and what esteem they hold food and the culinary arts, right?
Yes.
They actually completed a study in 2022
Uh-huh.
looking to reduce the amount of ultra processed food consumed by their population because
Uh-huh.
it's so detrimental. Again, using those specific criteria. And in a nutshell, what I mean when I say ultra processed food is food where we've taken the way it comes naturally and we destroyed what we call the natural food matrix. And then we put it back together. But when we put it back together, we add lots of things. And
Mm.
these things aren't so good for us. They're what we call markers of ultra processing. They're additives, flavors, preservatives,
Yes.
things to give it long life and shelf stability to
Yes.
make these products very profitable, which is what they're designed to do.
Yes.
There's often added sugars and fats as well, which is
Mhm.
where you get sort of that energy density of these ultra processed foods.
Yes.
So we really want to try to stay away from these ultra processed foods. And it's so simple. Eat natural foods, eat wholesome foods, eat things the way nature has prepared them.
Right.
And what that does, Maria, is it opens up a whole new world,
Right.
because now a sandwich isn't a sandwich. It's
Right.
not about the what kind of meat and tuna on there. It's like, is it an ultra processed thing, that comes in this pink square block, and that's the ham, or is
Yes.
it real prosciutto,
Right.
right? So it becomes really a world of tasteful treats that we can have almost anything we want, within
Exactly.
moderation, of course.
Right.
But if we just stick to the more natural way that we've been eating for last 100,000 years, maybe.
Right. Yes, definitely. Stick to the natural way of eating. And one thing that I think is a simple thing to follow too, if it's in a plastic bag and it has this long list of chemicals, you just want to stay away from it, right?
Well, you're spot on. One of the sort of tips and tricks, as you were saying, that we give folks is I say keep it to 5 to stay alive. So if it has more than 5 ingredients, so on that list, like you're saying, you hit 6 or more, just put it back on the shelf, because roughly about 85% of the time it's ultra processed if it's got 6 or more ingredients. Almost all the time if it's got more than 10. So keep it to 5 to stay alive. Not a 100% rule, but a good rule of thumb if you don't know. And the other thing is, when we're looking at those ingredients, we're looking at those foods, what questions should we ask? I tell folks to ask 3 simple questions. How is it bred? So is this conventional? Is it organic? Is it farm tilapia from who knows where? Is it wild caught Alaskan salmon? So how is it bred? What was it fed? Again, is it raised on, GMO? Is it GMO raised on pesticides and herbicides and fertilizers? Is it, organically grown carrot or tomato, or, whatever the case may be? And then finally, where was it led? So how much processing, what occurred from the moment it was harvested to it showed up on my plate? It might be fish, but if it comes, through the drive-through in a square bun, that's not how fish naturally occur. So so just because that's a fish doesn't make it a better choice than a grass-finished bison burger or, grass-finished beef burger where it was maybe produced locally. For example, and just, ate the natural grasses and things around there. So, those 3 questions are kind of something that you can just keep in your mind and ask when you're not sure.
Exactly. Well, that's great. Thank you for all those tips. And we're just about out of time, Dr. Mike, but tell people where they can find you. Do you have a website?
Yeah, so it's www.chefdrmike, so chefdrmike.com. But follow me on Twitter at Chef Dr. Mike, same. chefdrmike.com, Facebook, the usual haunts. They just look up chefdrmike.com. If they go to the webpage, they can just click and follow us along there. Love to have folks join me. I answer everything myself, so if I'm having a bad week, give me a day or 2, but I'll always get back to you. I love to hear from everyone. Oh, that's great. And, excuse me, I think I forgot to tell people that you are a chef also, which is really important for people to know. I think that's such a wonderful combination. So, yes, Chef Dr. Mike. Great. Yeah, started as a dishwasher before there were celebrity chefs. So I'm dated was, I walked in, I'll give you the story in 30 seconds, but I walked in having figured, my mom taught me to cook. I knew what I was doing. And I said, I'm here to be your chef. And they said, well, we've got a job for a dishwasher. So if you do that for 6 months, then we'll move you up to the line. So that's how I started, washing dishes, then working on the line and kind of working my way back up. Yes. Well, that's a good, I always say the best way to get started in any career is like from the bottom up, because you'll learn every little step of the way. So that's great. And you appreciate everyone. Yes. Dr. Mike, thank you so much for being here. And, let me know, reach out if you have anything else coming up or whatever, and you want to be on again. It's always nice. Definitely great to hear from you and get your tips. And and I guess we'll be talking to you soon. Okay, great. Thanks, Maria. Thank you. Thanks for listening to the Maria Liberati Show, and thanks to my producer, Britton Roselle, and my production intern, Megan Swistak, and this week's special guest, Dr. Mike Fenster. And as always, you can find more info on the episodes if you go to the marialiberatishow.com, and you can also find me at the marialiberatishow.com. You can find a video version of this podcast on YouTube at the Maria Liberati Show, and you can also find me at marialiberati.com, thebasicartofitaliancooking.com, on Facebook at Chef Maria Liberati, on Instagram at Maria Liberati, on Twitter at Maria Liberati, on LinkedIn at M Liberati, on Pinterest at Maria Liberati,
on my Vimeo channel, which is Maria Liberati, and my Roku channel, The Basic Art of Italian Cooking by Maria Liberati. And if you want more info on any of the shows, or you want recipes, well, for info on any of the shows, more info, you can go to themarialiberatishow.com. You can also email us at info@marialiberati.com. And for recipes or the book series, the Gourmand World Award-winning book series, The Basic Art of Italian Cooking, and The Basic Art of Italian Cooking Holidays and Special Occasions, and The Basic Art of Italian Cooking Da Vinci Style, you can find those books at artoflivingprimamedia.com and on Amazon and Kindle and anywhere books are sold. And until next time, peace, love, and pasta.